That's a lie, and it's based off this. I don't know how many. It doesn't make sense. Where would NATO expand to? There was no place east for NATO to go.
These plans of including Ukraine in NATO is going to be a disaster. And I've been over here talking with everybody in Russia, not just Vladimir Putin, even his sharpest liberal critics. They all agree that this is the brightest of red lines for them. They will not tolerate Ukraine being a part of America's military alliance. And I just don't understand why of course we would not tolerate that either. If China or Russia wanted to bring Mexico into their military.
It's so stupid. This comparison, nobody calls him out on it. It's so stupid. We're not actively invading Canada and Mexico. It doesn't make sense for them to join an alliance like that. Yeah, of course. And these are oceans apart. Why would that? It's not even a remotely accurate comparison. Like, what would even be the cause for them to join an alliance like that? It's not like we're invading them all the time. It's not even remotely similar.
Of course, we would not tolerate that either. If China or Russia wanted to bring Mexico into their military alliance and then just announced, as they did 2 months after this memo at the Bucharest summit, that they were going forward with that, and then there was, and then they poured tens.
Actually, careful, that might not age well, because who knows? Maybe Trump will try to invade. We're not. Let me qualify it. We're not yet invading Canada or Mexico.
Maybe over $100 million into a street protest, which overthrew the democratically elected president of.
And then there's the Russian propaganda for 2014. Remember, Euromaidan was just a CIA coup, and we know all of that because there was one leaked phone call where our diplomats said they'd prefer one leader to the other.
Mexico, who was going to make a deal with us, and then went in the other, we would have the exact, and I don't think Washington, D.C. would be above invading Mexico if that's what they needed to do. We would never tolerate that, and we could recognize that Vladimir Putin is no angel, and also understand that the West put him into a situation where he reasonably could claim, I cannot tolerate what your plans are here. What's the point of us doing this? It makes no sense. It's not in our interest.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Walsh, the other part of
what I would add, and one thing I would add as well, what I would add as well is Bill Burns was working for James Baker when James Baker told Genscher, as part of the reunification of Germany, that we would not seek to expand NATO to the east.
That's a lie, and it's based off this. I don't know how many. It doesn't make sense. Where would NATO expand to? There was no place east for NATO to go. Nobody knew the Soviet Union was about to collapse. That doesn't even make sense. The not 1 inch eastward referred to putting weapons or military installments in East Germany after reunification. It doesn't make sense that they would have agreed not to expand NATO eastward because the Soviet Union and the whole Warsaw Pact still existed. This is such a stupid talking point. This is so stupid.
Again, wise people like Bill Burns, James Baker understood this basic, perhaps unfounded, but genetic predisposition, opposing encroachment of NATO, Ukraine, their frontier.
Yeah.
But Pierce, to this notion of encroachment of NATO.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You either believe NATO's a good thing or a bad thing. There's a reason why countries like Finland and so many other European countries want to be in NATO. It's a good thing. It's a defensive alliance for freedom-loving democratic nations.
Dave Smith, oh, that's so funny. You look, he's like, oh, you think it? Oh man, let me tell you a little something about. You ever heard of the Iraq War, buddy? God, oh my God, I'm coming. I need to turn my camera off. I'm about to come so many times when he brings up how evil NATO is and how we're the exact same as China and the Soviet Union. We're the exact, and we're just so evil. Oh my God, he's about to give the most epic talking points. God, I'm so hyped for this. Please, Dave Smith, lay into him with the Iraq and Afghanistan and then all the evil NATO talking points. Come on, show this guy what's up. Yes.
Encroaching upon Russia. NATO's a good thing, Pierce. It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, but what about the point?
But
what about the point Dave Smith made, which is surely correct? If it was America and there was a country doing this, I think America would respond very aggressively to what they would perceive as an encroachment.
Well, again, that aside for 1 second, what are we to do? Finland wanted to join NATO. Finland now shares almost 1,000 miles of border with Russia. And Putin screamed to the high heavens that if Finland joined NATO, there'd be hell to pay. Nothing's happened. What do we do, Pierce? What do we do, Pierce, if peace-loving nations in Europe
the answer is obvious.
Look, the answer is obvious. It's sad, but Ukraine is just not allowed to join because Russia said that if they do, they'll whip their ass. And we all have to be cucks to Russia. That's just realistic. That's just what we have to do. plus NATO evil.
Look, Joe, I mean, look, aside from this, I mean, I got to say, I find it to be very immature thinking to say NATO's either good or bad. Like, I don't think that's ever how you should analyze the world. And you know, you can say, I know you and Pierce, you and Tucker had your argument about this, but if you want to say NATO's a defensive alliance, I mean, I guess, except for all of the times when it's not, you know, except for Syria, except for Serbia and Libya and Afghanistan. But okay, if you want to claim NATO as a defensive alliance, look, what we should do.
Oof. Yeah. Okay. So the 2011 military intervention in Libya was NATO led, but it was implementing this was a UN Security Council resolution that had, because it's a Security Council that had no votes opposing. So there were 10 votes in favor and 5 abstentions. So even, I believe it was China, Russia voted on, because Gaddafi was so fucking unhinged, which he was, that even they abstained from voting against that. So you can call it a NATO mission if you want, but it was UN Security Council stamped and approved. If it wouldn't have been NATO, it would have just been some other group of people that would have went in, because even your Security Council here voted to uphold that resolution.
Is not expand it. And I'm sorry, but who cares if other countries desire to join NATO?
That seems to be completely
Oh my God, I just pushed the wrong.
But okay, if you want to claim NATO as a defensive alliance, look, what we should do is not expand it. And I'm sorry, but who cares if other countries desire to join NATO? That's not how we should be making these decisions. Of course, lots of countries would love to join NATO. I'm sure a huge majority of them, because yeah, you get your defense subsidized and you get protection from the most powerful government in the history of the world, the United States of America. But that's not the question. The point is, why would we want to expand NATO right up to Vladimir Putin's borders?
It was already there. It was already there. They didn't invade because of anything to do with NATO. Why do we keep spreading that talking point? 2014 wasn't a response to NATO. It was a response to Yanukovych being out. Ukraine wasn't any closer to getting in NATO in 2022 when they did the full-scale invasion. It's just a lie. There's a Russian talking point.
And look,
the truth is that expanded. It's already expanded right to Vladimir Putin's border. And if you can't, David, but Dave, again, every time I'm on with you, you accuse me of immature thinking. Granted, nothing is totally black and white, but would you not say generally over the course of history, here we go again, NATO has generally been kind of a force for good? Yeah?
No.
No, you can't say that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't believe that NATO has been a force for good. I believe it's the exact type. It's the exact type of entangling alliance that our founders were unanimous in recommending that we don't get involved in. And Cenk, you can say I'm wrong, but dude, you're as anti-war as I am.
How did that? I didn't get that far in the Federalist Papers. What did our founders say about being involved in foreign nation affairs? Did we have a lot of? I don't even know. My mind is a blank there, but.
So why are you standing up for the European wing of the American Empire? You know what this is, Cenk.
Dave, he's saying we're both.
No, hold on. So listen. You're both wrong and you're both right.
Okay.
So listen. I love, first of all, just quick side note here, that nobody can tell who's left or right anymore. This is beautiful.
Do you know what?
American
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I agree with you on this. NATO expanded, but do they have to start conflicts right away after NATO expands? Can Russia not say, we've hated this expansion, I've been waiting for a good time to react? If people were honest about it, then I would accept the argument. The reality is Russia doesn't really like NATO expansion that much, sure, but the reason why isn't because they're afraid that NATO is going to attack them. That's bullshit. They don't like it because Russia likes to rape and pillage its neighbors when it's convenient to them. And if their neighbors are in NATO, it's really hard to do that. That's why they don't want them in NATO. If people like Dave Schitt were at least honest about that, he was like, well, yeah, of course Russia's really mad. They don't want NATO to have Ukraine inside of it. Then they wouldn't be able to invade Ukraine whenever they wanted to when they weren't being Belarusian enough for them. Then I'd be like, okay, well, at least he's using an honest argument now, right? Russia's not afraid of a NATO invasion. And in Ukraine being in NATO or not would not be the deciding factor on if NATO could even invade. There's just a point. It's so stupid. I just don't like the dishonest. Just be honest about the argument.
Note here that nobody can tell who's left or right anymore. This is
beautiful. Do you know what?
American
That's exactly what I was thinking. The whole political pendulum has completely gone crazy. Where if we had this debate 20 years ago, everyone would have known who the right are and who the left are. It is impossible anymore to define people in the way that we used to, and I like that.
I love it. I love it because we're now using our minds and independent judgment and actually talking about policy rather than strict ideology on either side. So now, look, I agree with Joe. The UN is very important. I know I'm a lone voice here these days in American media, but I 100% believe in the world working together. I think NATO is very important. I'm very supportive of NATO, and I think it has definitely been a force for good and has protected the alliance. Having said that, Dave is right. Just because you like NATO doesn't mean that NATO has to get closer and closer to Russia. I mean, Joe,
Yeah, that too. Destiny, Russia never claimed their 2022 invasion was because of Ukraine's potential NATO acceptance. Their entire premise was to denazify Ukraine and help protect native Russians within the Donbass. That's true too. Even Russia didn't use that excuse. It's like when people like Hassan will carry buckets of water for Hamas, and you ask them, like, you acknowledge that, like, Hamas, they don't even fight with military uniforms, right? Like, they literally fight in civilian garb constantly. Like, people like got that one guy's name. I want to call him Omar Omar something. Like, I remember I asked him in a debate with this. I know Hassan would never acknowledge this. Like, these guys won't even acknowledge, was it Omar Badar? They won't even acknowledge that, yeah, Hamas fights in civilian garb constantly, sure. They don't actually wear uniforms. They won't even acknowledge that. They make up lies for Hamas that Hamas doesn't even make up for themselves. Hamas will openly say, of course, we've blended with our civilian population. Fuck you, fuck Israel. We will fight however the fuck we can. We will use human shields. They don't give a fuck. Like, Hamas says this, and then people in the West will try to say, well, they're not actually doing that. Russia, there was that whole thing that leaked on accident of, like, that weird thing where Ukraine and Russia were did he say kindred spirits? I don't remember, but where Putin talked about like we're common souls or common spirits or whatever bullshit we have a long and rich history together. Like, even they weren't citing NATO expansionism at the beginning. So why the fuck are these losers doing it? I
appreciate that, Destiny.
All right, bye. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.